Please be seated. Honorable members, does any member wish to give notice of a motion? Honorable Sinclair and Honorable Adams, those are the only two. List closed. Honorable Sinclair.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I give notice on behalf of the Congress of the People that the Council in the next sitting of the House debates firstly the arrest of 6 pedophiles aged 46, 49 and 63 in 5 provinces. Secondly, notes that these pedophiles are people who have prestigious positions in our society and parents trusted them with the lives of some of their children. Thirdly, further notes that the web of DVDs, cell phones, computers, computer tablets, external hard drive, USB cameras, and videos used to capture and store these gruesome acts of child pornography were confiscated by the police. And lastly, call on all stakeholders to work together and swiftly bring all the culprits to book, and including registering these culprits, if found guilty, on the National Register of Sexual Offenders of Children. I so move.
Honorable Freddie Adams.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I hereby give notice that in the next sitting of the Council, I shall move that the Council notes that Premier Helen Zille of the Western Cape and the City of Cape Town have at long last decided to cooperate with the South African Police Service in the gang-ridden area of Manenberg by making resources and the Metro Police available to assist the police to patrol the schools in Manenberg area after she had exploited the situation for almost a year for her own political agenda. Welcomes their willingness to cooperate, especially in view of the fact that the deployment of the army to the area would only be a temporary solution, and more so that an integrated approach is required involving communities, parents, NGOs, intergovernmental organizations, cooperation and all other relevant stakeholders, a strategy that was received with enthusiasm by Mayor de Lille of Cape Town in a meeting with the Minister of Police. Further notes that the cooperation of the Western Cape Government and the City of Cape Town by deploying additional law enforcement staff to the area to assist the police gives the police the space to conduct investigations and ensure gang members are brought to justice, and takes this opportunity to call on Premier Zille to join Mayor de Lille in support of the strategy of the Minister of the Police and his department. I so move. Thank you.
Honorable members, does any member wish to move a motion without notice? Honorable Mufokeng.
Thank you very much. I hereby move without notice that the Council notes that the police have last Friday and Monday arrested 2 members of the so-called Crowbar gang, which is notorious for their burglary methods and who have created havoc in the residential areas in Cape Town. Note that these thieves, who are part of several gangs that operate in different areas, are professional criminals who use crowbars and other tools to break open security gates and doors of homes, and they have been terrorizing communities and robbing households indiscriminately in recent weeks. Further notes that the police know the identities of other gang members and further arrests are imminent in due course. Takes this opportunity to commend and thank the police for their dedication and commitment for the arresting of these criminals, and calls on the public to be on the alert and to be the eyes and ears of the police in ensuring that the scourge of housebreaking and robbery as well as other criminal activities are rooted out. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Ranto.
I hereby move without notice that the Council notes the success of the macadamia farming project of the community of Ngecha, a sprawling rural settlement near East London and the Eastern Cape that is not only aimed at creating long-term sustainable economic opportunities and jobs in the region, but also at training and skills development, as well as further development of sustainable black farmers and social upliftment projects. Notes that 9 years after the community have planted the first macadamia trees, they have recently celebrated the first harvest yielded from their initial 50-hectare macadamia nut plantation that is currently being cultivated out of a total of 300 hectares. Further notes that the community owns the full value chain of the project, from the nursery to the plantation, the processing plant, and the products that are supplied to local and international markets. Commends the community for their dedication to ensure the success of this project, and also commends government for its support to this project and its commitment towards social upliftment of the people and the creation of sustainable jobs, and takes this opportunity to call on all communities across the country to follow suit with appropriate initiatives. I so move.
In objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Weth.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that Verriesburg, which is situated in the Dechlabeng municipality, Eastern Free State, has won the Small Town of the Year award. This award to Small Town of the Year is to improve tourism to the area and to raise their profile. The prize money is 1 million rand to advertise their town. Verriesburg, with a population of 19,000 people in total, received 107,761 votes in the Kwela Capenet competition. Lastly, despite water challenges, Verriesburg won the award as a result of a collective effort. Well done. I so move.
In objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Ncube.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I hereby move without notice that the Council notes with sadness the reports of the death of one of the daughters of our country, an activist, a leader, and a jazz songstress of note, Satima B. Benjamin. Further notes that Satima B. Benjamin was born in Cape Town in 1936. By the early 60s, she had made a name for herself in the music and theatre scene. She toured the world, becoming well-known in jazz circles as a regular feature at the musical festival. She then settled in New York, where she established herself as a leading exponent of her musical genre, and also got married to jazz legend Abdullah Ibrahim. Also note that it was in New York where Benjamin took up the fight for liberation, assisting the ANC with fundraising concerts to raise awareness of the struggle. She has recorded more than 10 albums, and in 2004, she was bestowed with the Order of Ikamanga in silver at the National Orders Awards by the South African government for her excellent contribution as a jazz artist in the development of music in South Africa and internationally. She was also honored for her contribution to the struggle against apartheid. Just 2 weeks ago, Standard Bank Joy of Jazz awarded Benjamin with Lifetime Achievement Award, and takes this opportunity to convey our sincere condolences to the family and friends of Satima B. Benjamin during this difficult time. I so move.
Any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Kekese.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. The African National Congress hereby move without notice that the Council knows with concern and shock that a construction worker of Durban had been buried alive last week at the building site in Red Hill while he was digging a trench, and despite him voicing his concern to the project manager about the unsafe condition that the site and the danger of digging the trench without proper safety measure being in a place. Notes that his concerns were, however, ignored by the manager, who ordered him to continue working. Further notes that shortly thereafter, a sandbag collapsed and fell onto the worker, burying him alive, and by the time that he was taken out, he was already dead. Notes that, with further concern, that the worker of the construction company were working without any signed contract or safety gear and with no safety measures in place. After the incident, the construction company attempted to get the workers to sign contract, which they had refused. The African National Congress wished to convey a word of condolence to their family and to the beloved ones of the deceased worker, and takes this opportunity to all the municipality and the Minister of Labor as well as the Department of Labor to lodge an urgent comprehensive investigation into the matter and to appreciate action without delay. I so move, Honorable Chair.
An objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Kamete?
I move without notice that the Council notes the reports of a partnership between the Northern Cape Department of Education and Anglo-Americans Iron Ore Business, which will see Kumba Iron Ore handing over its successfully completed early childhood development centers today. Further notes that this partnership has led to Kumba building, equipping, and staffing 9 ECD centers in the towns neighboring its operation. Construction and equipment costs were close to 39.6 million, with Kumba contributing 31.66 million, and the Department of Education in the province contributing 7.9 million, respectively. Takes this opportunity to applaud this partnership, which shows what can be achieved when a mining company takes seriously its social responsibility commitment. I so move.
Any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Matila?
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move without notice that the Council notes with appreciation the good work of the Northwest Provincial Government through the effort of the MEC for Human Settlements, Public Safety and Liaison, who helped the Mahlalela family as they buried their mother and grandmother after undertaking to do so last week. Further notes that Ms. Tlhokwani Mahlalela, who was 109 years old, was regarded as the oldest citizen, was buried with dignity yesterday at Rangkelenyani village outside Rustenburg, shortly after her shocking living conditions were exposed by the media. Also notes that at the time of her death, the provincial government had begun building her house, and the department plans to complete the house soon and hand it over to the family in honor of their promise. And takes this opportunity to commend the ANC provincial government in the Northwest for showing that it is a caring government of the people. I so move.
An objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Liz?
Honourable Chairperson, I hereby move the following motion without notice. This House notes the comments made by Reserve Bank Governor Jill Marcus that the Reserve Bank does not have the institutional authority or tools to undertake the structural reforms required to ensure that an economy grows faster or that unemployment is reduced at a faster pace, that the Reserve Bank cannot determine the longer-run potential output of the economy. The House therefore calls upon the ANC, the Cabinet and National Treasury, especially in the lead-up to the 2014 elections, to uphold the independence of the Reserve Bank, to refrain from trying to influence the Reserve Bank and the Monetary Policy Committee in particular, to reduce rates simply to stimulate growth, irrespective of other negative consequences. I so move.
An objection to the motion? In the light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Boroto?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes with appreciation the reports of the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, rigorous campaign to clamp down on fraudulent beneficiaries. Further notes that SASSA's intention or to using biometric system to hire staff, and that they will do a thorough check on the 470,000 beneficiaries who did not register for social grants and find out whether they were fraudulently registered previously. Also notes that the report indicating that 10 million beneficiaries have already been issued with SASSA's new debit MasterCard, and that the new card is equipped with features that will curb duplication and reduce fraud in the system, and commends the action taken by SASSA towards the prevention of and the general fight against fraud and corruption in the country. I so move, Chair.
Any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable van Lingen.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that last night more than 50 ANC Youth League and SASCO members violently disrupted a Democratic Alliance students' organization meeting at the University of Limpopo. The DA members and leadership were assaulted. The incident comes few hours after another DASO meeting was DASO member was attacked and stabbed by a SASCO member at the Tshwane University of Technology at the Polokwane campus. It is clear that the ANC Youth League lost the direction of democracy and opted to resort to intimidation and violence. The DA has witnessed over the last 2 days, it is clear, notice a clear disregard of Constitution which promotes tolerance and the democratic principle. The DA will open several criminal cases against these hooligans pertaining to assault and damage of property. Will further be expediting plans to meet with the institutions of higher learning management and the ANC in the Limpopo to ensure that they take action. Demands immediate action and suspension by the University of Limpopo management of all the ringleaders who violently disrupted the Democratic Alliance's meeting last night. I so move.
Any objection to the motion? In the light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will now become notice of a motion. Honorable Swande.
Chairperson, I hereby move without notice that the Council note with appreciation the reports of a partnership between the Limpopo Provincial Public Works Department and the Independent Development Trust, which culminated in the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding to roll out major infrastructure development projects in the province. Further notes that in terms of the agreement, the IDT will take charge of the building of schools and healthy facilities as part of efforts to help the department deliver on its mandate in seeing that social infrastructure was developed. Also notes that while the IDT will be responsible for most of the capital projects, other function will still be responsibility of the provincial department, and that the memorandum gives the provincial public works MEC powers to do an oversight of the projects and give political leadership, and takes this opportunity to welcome this great initiative which seeks to speed up service delivery. I so move.
Any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Chaldebia.
Honorable Chairperson, I hereby move the notice, without notice, that the Council notes that the Auditor General has, following the audit outcomes for 2012-13, congratulated the Gauteng Provincial Government on improving its audit results, which was an impressive improvement on the previous year's audit results. Notes that the improved audit results were achieved through a variety of interventions by the provincial government, such as strengthening leadership and stabilizing management, strengthening capacity in strategic planning and financial management, and ensuring the implementation of robust accounting practices, clamping down on overspending and the like. Further notes that the turnaround strategy for the Health Department is beginning to yield positive results, and the Auditor General has also commended the Department on its improved quality of performance, and takes this opportunity to commend the Gauteng Provincial Government as well as the provincial heads of departments and the CFOs and other officials for their commitment and dedication towards clean audits and to achieve even better results in future, and calls on all provincial departments across the country and on all municipalities to be committed and to leave no stone unturned towards achieving clean audits in 2014. I so move, Honourable Chairman.
Any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of section 65. Time for motions is over, but I will take the last two names, Honourable Nyambi and Honourable Chane. You will be the last.
Thanks, Chair. I hereby move without notice that the Council notes with concern that a police captain of Mbombela in Mpumalanga province was arrested last week and charged with illegal trafficking of firearms as well as corruption and theft. Notes that the arrest followed a year-long investigation after reports that the weapons that were handed in by the public for destruction by the police are being sold from the Nelspruit police station, while a large number of firearm licenses were found under the seat of his car. Commends the police on this breakthrough and take this opportunity to call on the Minister of Police and his department to implement stringent measures to secure firearms that are in the possession or under the control of the police, and to ensure that firearms that are handed in for destruction are destroyed as soon as possible after it had been handed in. I so move.
Any objection to the motion? Agreed to in terms of section 65 of the Constitution. Honourable Chane.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I hereby move without notice that the Council knows that thousands of people in Cape Town, especially in informal settlements, have been severely affected and displaced by the recent wet and cold weather conditions, and welcomes the assistance by disaster response team of the City of Cape Town. Knows that while residents were struggling to scoop water out of their homes and some were forced to seek alternative shelter, the city has spent millions towards temporary relief measures by handing out blankets, baby kits, meals, and the like. However, knows that this dismal living condition of the people in these areas are mainly as a result of lack of proper stormwater drainage, infrastructure, and other services, and the mere handing out of blankets and food does not solve the problem or improve the living conditions of the people who are faced with these conditions year after year, and calls on the City of Cape Town to end its crisis management of the situation and to implement a lasting solution to the problem by providing these communities with proper stormwater drainage systems, infrastructure, housing, and other services. I so move, Chair.
Any objection to the motion? In the light of the motion, in the light of the objection, the motion may not be proceeded with. The motion without notice will become a notice of a motion. Order. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development, proclamations made in terms of Section 25 of the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorist and Related Activities Act.
Honourable Mukhobi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable members, I present a statement on behalf of the Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development on proclamation made in terms of Section 25 of the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorists and Related Activities Act 2004, Act number 33, dated 12 June 2013. The Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development received a briefing on the proclamation made in terms of Section 25 of the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorists and Related Activities Act, 2004, Act number 33, as tabled in the following gazettes. 1. Proclamation number 39, Proclamation number 40, published in the Government Gazette number 35566, dated 6 August 2012. 2. Proclamation number 41, Proclamation number 42, Proclamation number 43, published in Government Gazette number 35599, dated 17 August 2012. 3. Proclamation number 57, Proclamation number 58, published in Government Gazette number 35713, dated 26 September 2012. Proclamation number 64, published in Government Gazette number 35807, dated 23 October 2012. 4. Proclamation number 1, published in Government Gazette number 36055, dated 4 January 2013. The Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development reports that it has concluded its deliberation on the proclamations made in terms of Section 25 of the Protection of Constitutional Democracy Against Terrorists and Related Activity Act, 2004, number 33, and recommends that the National Council of Provinces approve the said proclamation. I think.
Thank you, Honorable Nokovi. That concludes the debate. I shall now put the question, and the question is that the report be agreed to. In accordance with Rule 7.1, I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make their declaration of votes if they so wish. Is there any province that wish to do so? None. We shall now proceed to the voting on the question. I shall do so in an alphabetic order per province. Heads of delegate will vote by pressing in favor, against, or abstain buttons. Voting starts. I don't have to call the provinces. All right. Northern Cape, Western Cape? Support. Okay. Have everybody voted? The staff will give me the results. Northwest, have you voted? Northwest voted, now you have voted. Right. Give me the results, staff. Eastern Cape. Right. All 9 provinces have voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. The Secretary will read the second order of the day.
Consideration of report of Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development. Oversight visit to the Groenpunt Maximum Security Correctional Center in the Free State Province.
Honorable Nzimande.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development, jointly with the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, undertook an oversight visit to Groenpunt in January 2013, following the riots that took place in the maximum prison. The Select Committee was informed on the causes of the riots, which included amongst others the staff shortages and collaboration between some personnel who were dissatisfied with the service and and prisoners. The riot took place on a Monday between 7 and 9 January, wherein 74 inmates were injured and seven personnel were injured. Later, it was recorded over 100 inmates were injured. The committee, the delegation of the Select Committee met with the prisoners, the inmates from Unit B1 of the prison, the TCS officials, and the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Service, and then a debrief was held later. The findings of the committee include, amongst others, that prisoners have submitted the complaints which contained the grievances, amongst others, the shortages of food, mismanagement of the kitchen, lack of maintenance of the infrastructure, and poor health services, shortages of nurses, amongst others. The committee further held sessions with ordinary prison officials, amongst which issues of a relationship between management and personnel was highlighted, problems of shifts and shortages of staff being and members being overworked. The area commissioner, who is in charge of Free State and Northern Cape, informed the committee of steps that have been taken following the riots, which include, amongst others, cautionary suspension of the head of the correctional center, the area commissioner, and another official. Amongst other problems highlighted were the shortages of administrative staff who were wrongly allocated to the commissioner's office, and the lack of infrastructure and the low morale amongst the personnel that work in the prison. The committee, whilst on the premises, witnessed an attack on one personnel who was in charge of them, but who was hit by the lock, and the committee further undertook the tour of the prison and witnessed the poor infrastructure of the facility in some of the cells, and also the poor condition of the health facility in the prison. And the committee therefore requested immediate quarterly report on the prison, on the management and the corrective measures, and directed the correctional service, the TCS management, to beef up the staff and ask the parole committee to regularly visit the inmates to undertake their needs. We therefore recommend that the House adopt this oversight undertook by the Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. I shall now put the question, and the question is that the report be agreed to in accordance with Rule 7.1. I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make their declaration of vote if they so wish. Is there any province that wish to do so? No. We shall now proceed to the voting to the question. I shall do so in an alphabetic order per province. Heads of delegation will vote either in favor, against, or abstain. I will do it manually so that we can move a little bit fast. Eastern Cape? Eastern Cape? You are not recorded, Honorable Member. Did you use your...
Siyavuma, Chair.
Thank you very much. Free State? Gauteng? KwaZulu-Natal? Limpopo? Mpumalanga? Northern Cape? Northwest? Have you voted, ma'am? Western Cape?
Support.
Can we reconcile the results, staff? Everything okay? Some voted electronically. Northwest, you have voted, but you voted against. Can I confirm that you're voting against?
No. No, I didn't. I voted positive.
You vote in favor?
Yeah.
Voted in favor? Okay. All 9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Secretary will read the third order of the day.
Consideration of report of Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development, 2013-14 Annual Performance Plan, Strategic Plan and Budget of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate dated 19 June 2013.
Honorable Matila.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Select Committee on Security and Constitutional Development, having considered the annual performance plan, strategic plan, and the budget vote of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate on the 6th May 2013, reports as follows. That the alignment of the strat plan and the APP with the new act has seen the department become part of the Justice, Crime Prevention, Police and Security cluster. It has also established a satellite office in Pretoria and has started to build relationship with key stakeholders. The committee recommends that IPID must eliminate the backlog of cases it is investigating. In particular, there should be more pressure exerted on SAPS to implement the Domestic Violence Act. IPID should develop a strategy that specifically addresses increasing police brutality. IPID should hold media and public briefings on its investigations at least once a month to give the public an update of its progress. The committee recommends that this House adopts the report. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, that concludes the debate. I shall now put the question, and the question is that the report be agreed to. In accordance with Rule 7.1, I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make their declaration of votes if they so wish. Any province that wish to do so? We will now continue voting. It's either you vote in favor, against, or abstain. Eastern Cape? In favor, Free State? Yeah, what are you voting, Mr. Jacobs? Voted what? In favor? Gauteng? In favor, KwaZulu-Natal? Sekela Limpopo. Right, Mpumalanga. Favor Northern Cape. In favor Northwest. Western Cape. In favor, all 9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable members, we now come to the subject for debate or for discussion as printed on the order paper. I now call upon the Honorable Deputy Minister for Cooperative Government and Traditional Affairs, Honorable A. Nell. Honorable Nell.
Chairperson, honourable members, good afternoon. It's an honour and a pleasure to be back in the National Council of Provinces in a different capacity. A capacity that will hopefully also bring me closer to the work of the Council. And indeed, it's an honour to be here as a Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and to share some thoughts with the Council regarding the very important issue of disaster management. I think in South Africa we've come a long way in the implementation of a legislative framework governing disaster management in the country, while also contributing to a regional and a global agenda. In line with international trends, our national objectives of efficient and effective management of our nation's resources, South Africa's disaster management policy and legislation underscores the importance of preventing human, economic, and property losses and avoiding environmental degradation. Preparedness measures for more efficient rescue operations will always remain necessary, but there's a common agreement that much greater attention should be directed to the introduction of preventative strategies aimed at saving lives and protecting assets before they are lost. One of the key observations is that very often scarce resources are often diverted for disaster relief at the expense of growth and development opportunities, resulting in the worsening of the plight of poverty-stricken communities. The plight of the most vulnerable sections of our population and the very cause of their vulnerability, namely poverty, cannot be ignored. Honourable members, in line with government's priorities, the disaster management approach pays specific attention to the pressing needs of poor communities in relation to both natural and human-induced disasters in the context of a developmental and capable state. Whether it's responding to natural disasters, curtailing humanitarian crises, mitigating conflict, or effectively implementing development policy, a capable state and its institutions must lead the way. Our South African National Development Plan, Vision 2030, highlights the elements of a decent standard of living as follows. Income through employment or social security is critical to defining living standards, but human beings need more than income. They need adequate nutrition, they need transport to get to work, they desire safe communities and clean neighborhoods. These elements require action either from individuals, government, communities, or the private sector, close quote. One of the critical actions to achieve this has been identified as implementing interventions to ensure environmentally sustainable and resilience to future disasters. Climate change, global warming, energy efficiency, and a variety of recent natural disasters indicate the vulnerability of urban communities and the urgent need to build resilience. South Africa has to adapt to the expected impacts of climate change and on the same breath build the social, economic and physical resilience. Disaster risk reduction and management is a cross-cutting issue which affects all sectors of government and society. To this end, I can confirm that key stakeholders in disaster management have come to a realization that no amount of effective service delivery, poverty reduction, and sustainable development can be realized without the parallel implementation of a disaster reduction agenda. This is evident in the manner in which the function is taking a central position in the discussions and programming within various sectors, spheres of government and other disciplines. Chairperson, I wish to take this opportunity to provide a brief overview of the risk profile of South Africa and share the progress made to address issues of disaster risk reduction. Like many other developing countries, South Africa faces a wide range of hazards, including drought, fires, cyclones, severe storms that can trigger widespread hardship and devastation. We only have to think of what has happened here in the Western Cape in the past couple of weeks to realize the dangers that we face. And the negative impact of these disasters leave the country to deal with issues such as loss of lives, damage to infrastructure and the environment, disrupted livelihoods, schooling and social services. Recently, our national government allocated funds amounting to almost 60 million rands to the municipal disaster grant to affected municipalities in the Eastern Cape and Western Cape to deal with the effects of disasters that affected our communities. Local and provincial states of disaster were declared in accordance with sections 41 and 55 of the Disaster Management Act. In addition, the country also shares borders with 6 southern African neighbors, and this contributes to both natural and human-induced trans-border risks, as well as humanitarian assistance obligations in times of emergency. I think we only have to think of the sterling work done by our South African National Defence Force in Mozambique a couple of years ago to illustrate this point. Honourable members, current South African disaster management legislation is internationally reputed for its emphasis on prevention and its comprehensive approach to disaster risk reduction. However, since the promulgation of the Act on the 15th of January 2003, and during the subsequent commencement of the legislation in the various spheres of government, some challenges were experienced to a varying degree in implementing all aspects of the legislation effectively. The key issues that require attention in current policy and legislation in South Africa have been highlighted in a number of research reports and submissions. In considering these reports and views, the need was acknowledged to call for a review of the Act. The National Disaster Management Centre embarked on a review process, and Cabinet has approved the Disaster Management Amendment Bill for publication on the 12th of June 2013. The bill has subsequently been published for public comment in the Government Gazette. To ensure more effective integration of disaster risk considerations into sustainable development policies, planning and programming at all levels, we continue to engage with organs of state across the spheres of government on issues of disaster management. Several disaster management plans were received from sectors, provincial, municipal and national stakeholders. These include roads and transport, electricity, water affairs, nuclear power, defence, police services, agriculture, amongst others. Work has also been done to ensure the integration of disaster reduction measures within the municipal integrated development plans. Furthermore, the National Disaster Management Centre and the Department of Environmental Affairs work in close collaboration to promote mechanisms and partnerships that integrate climate change, adaptation, and disaster risk reduction into developmental planning. The Act stipulates the establishment of a National Disaster Management Centre responsible for promoting integrated and coordinated national disaster management policy. The Act also gives explicit priority to the application of the principle of cooperative governance for the purpose of disaster management and emphasizes the involvement of all stakeholders in strengthening the capabilities of national, provincial and municipal organs of state to reduce the likelihood and severity of disasters. The Act also calls for the establishment of arrangements for cooperation with international role players and countries in the region. In our efforts toward the development and strengthening of institutions, mechanisms, and capabilities at all levels, in particular the community level, that can systematically contribute to building resilience to hazards. 62 disaster management centers have been established across provincial and municipal spheres of government, all of them supported by the National Disaster Management Center. The respective national, provincial, and municipal disaster management advisory forums are functional to serve as a platform for sharing information and exchanging ideas on disaster risk reduction issues. These are supported by technical task teams led by the sector's with responsibility on specialized disaster reduction matters. Work is also being done around building disaster management capacity and awareness through structured counsellor workshops across the country, as well as positive engagement with traditional leaders on risk reduction. The country also participates in the regional and sub-regional AU and SADC on matters as they relate to disaster risk reduction. There's also active involvement of the business sector in risk reduction through initiatives such as the Business Adopt a Municipality program. Political forums are being encouraged at provincial and municipal levels to oversee issues of disaster risk reduction in development planning and implementation. But honourable members, we should be mindful that risk reduction finds expression through measures such as disaster management integration within municipal IDPs, the design and rollout of disaster risk reduction public awareness and advocacy programs, the design and rollout of training and research programs, the design and deployment of disaster plans for incidents, events, and for long-term risk management, also the continual assessment of critical infrastructure to assess safety standards. In cooperation with the SAPS and the SANDF, mechanisms for event-based planning have been put in place to ensure successful staging of significant events. I think we can only think of events such as AFCON, the ANC National Conference in 2012, the BRICS Summit in 2013, etc. All of them events of a huge scale that passed off without any serious incident. Honourable members, you would agree that the early warning systems are also critical tools within disaster risk management. An effective early warning system requires understanding disaster risk, monitoring and forecasting hazards through science and technology, generating accurate and timely warnings, implementing dissemination of warnings to communities at risk in a way that is easily understood, and ensuring governments and communities are prepared and ready to react appropriately to both natural and government-issued warnings. The National Disaster Management Centre works in close collaboration with entities such as the South African Weather Service to provide such early warning information. You would be pleased to know that the country's response mechanism has been improved with the introduction of the disaster grant funding for provincial and municipal disaster incidents. This is a Schedule 8 fund under the Division of Revenue Act, aimed at taking care of the immediate needs of communities following declared disasters. Where adequately utilised, the implementation of the grant has proven to be very effective in enhancing our response capacity. Long-term funding for disaster reconstruction and rehabilitation programs is covered through the government budget planning process. Chairperson and honourable members, the main challenges hampering the effective functioning of disaster management centres in provinces, in district municipalities were highlighted in research as being financial challenges, lack of equipment, the need for trained and skilled personnel, obtaining the necessary political will, inadequate support of sector departments, and community participation and lack of effective communication strategies. The National Disaster Management Centre has recently established a monitoring and evaluation unit. The primary purpose of this unit is to develop and implement an integrated system of monitoring, reporting, and evaluating the extent to which disasters are being coordinated across the three spheres of government. Further, the role of the unit is to ensure that all stakeholders involved in disaster management implement the Disaster Management Act. The Monitoring and Evaluation Unit will provide unique information on the successes and weaknesses of the system of disaster management in our country. It will assist us to identify what works, what doesn't work, and the reasons why. For us to be able to build a viable and innovative disaster response and management system, we need a strong monitoring and evaluation system. Of major importance will be the participation of civil society in the monitoring system of disaster management at local level through participatory monitoring. Monitoring and evaluation provides a vehicle to magnify the voice of civil society and to put additional pressure on government to achieve higher levels of performance. Monitoring and evaluation findings can contribute to sound governance in a number of ways. Evidence-based policy making, including budget decision making, policy development, management, and accountability. The benefits of this new unit will ensure that the National Disaster Management Centre and other relevant stakeholders move from opinion-based policy towards evidence-based policy. This is mainly due to the nature of the policy environment as well as the national technical capacity to provide good quality and trustworthy evidence needed within the disaster management environment. The unit will be capacitated over the next 3 years. Chairperson, through the measures and activities alluded to above, we strive to address the key challenges to ensure the effective implementation of disaster management across the spheres of government. Honourable members, in conclusion, it's important to point out that disaster management is everyone's business in both planning and implementation levels, that the cost of response and recovery far outweighs the cost of risk reduction. US government estimates that spending $1 on risk reduction will save $7 on response and recovery. We also contend that prevention is better than cure. It can therefore be argued with confidence that disaster risk reduction must be a strategic focus of implementing disaster management. The integrated and transdisciplinary nature of the function dictates that the different sectors, levels, and disciplines must play an active role in risk reduction in line with their respective policies and strategies. The best way of reducing the effect of disasters is by integration of resilience in the daily service delivery, poverty reduction, and sustainable development programs. The NCOP, therefore, has a critical role to play in ensuring that the disaster management function assumes its strategic role of supporting development in our localities. This implies that disaster risk orientation should be central to the oversight work of the Council. This responsibility must be discharged in collaboration with other role players, including the communities at risk. Motivated by the fact that, in the words of UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, I quote, "Reducing disaster risk and increasing resilience to natural hazards in different development sectors can have multiplier effects and accelerate the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals." Close quote. Chairperson, I thank you for your attention and the privilege of being in the Council once again.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. I now call upon the Honourable Faku.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Deputy Minister, honorable members, distinguished guests, Chairperson, as I contribute to today's debate, let me take this opportunity to firstly thank the women of our country for their courage and sacrifice throughout the years, and further wish them all the best in these last few days of the Women's Month. Secondly, Chair, my thoughts are with our icon, Istwalandwe, Tata Matiba, as he continues to recover from hospital, and wish that very soon he will rejoin his family at home. Chair, it is indeed a great pleasure to participate in today's debate. All of us will agree that disaster is an issue that remains a big challenge and concern for our country, and continue to be so even worldwide. The impact of disasters upon our societies has immensely increased and becoming a major obstacle for us to achieve sustainable socio-economic development. These increasing levels of disaster facing our country are as a result of exposure to a wide range of weather hazards, including drought and severe storms that can trigger widespread hardship and devastation. We are all aware that in the process, lives of millions of people are affected in one way or another due to floods, drought, and fires. And what follows thereafter are direct economic losses, which are to be estimated at billions of rands. Chair, this disaster is as much as are referred to as natural disasters. We all know that they have much to do with human activities. In most cases, they are as a result of unsustainable human development activities, such as rapid urbanization, unplanned human settlements, and environmental degradation. If this is the case, much can be done to prevent the occurrence of disasters, or at least to ease their impact. Indeed, Chair, to ease the impact of disasters, government and the country as a whole can no longer afford to treat disaster issues as a disregard issue and thereby dealing with it on an ad hoc basis. It needs to be one of the areas we must really focus on and stop our ignorance towards it. As the African National Congress Chair, this has been indeed one of our areas of great concern even long before we were in government. The ANC committed itself towards effective and efficient disaster management in South Africa. Here, Chair, I am reminded of the ANC message by its then President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela on the occasion of the International Day for Natural Disaster Reduction on the 6th of October 1993, where he said, I quote, "The people of our country have suffered terribly under natural disasters such as drought and flooding. The impact of these disasters could have been limited if the National Party government did not implement racist policies that led to marginally agricultural areas being overpopulated and overgrazed." The message further continued, urgent steps must be taken to avoid further hardship and loss of life. Emergency assistance should be provided in ways that will support recovery and long-term development. It is the ANC's policy that humanitarian assistance must be provided to victims of disasters in accordance with the principles of humanity, neutrality, and impartiality. The government has the prime responsibility for providing this. It is evident that a fresh approach to disaster management in South Africa is long overdue. We in the ANC are committed to providing the leadership, political will, and resources that are needed to ensure that such a development approach to disaster management is achieved. Chair, this was a message as far back as 1993, exactly 20 years ago, to adopt a proactive, holistic, and comprehensive approach in disaster management, enabling us to mainstream disaster risk management systematically into development undertakings. If we mainstream disaster risk management into development processes, we will recognize that good disaster risk management helps to achieve development goals such as poverty eradication and environmental sustainability. Chair, as far back as the ANC, we were very clear that we needed to act and act before it was too late, that we needed to take preventive measures to ease the possible disasters, develop emergency contingency plans, and make necessary preparation for efficient and effective release assistance whenever necessary. We knew that it was going to be a daunting task which will require concerted efforts from all stakeholders and everybody else in development and disaster management. Our real concern was and remains that a large number of people today in disaster-prone areas are the poor and that they have less access to disaster information. They often believe a disaster is an act of God and there is absolutely nothing they can do about it. And calling for a proactive approach in disaster management was to move away from being all the time reactive in these situations. One is happy that disaster response compared with disaster reduction has received more attention and more commitment in many parts of our country. This proactive approach process culminated in the promulgation of the Disaster Management of 2002, Act number 57 of 2002 on 15 January 2003. The Act provides for, amongst others, one, an integrated, coordinated disaster risk management policy that focuses on preventing or reducing the risk of disasters, mitigating the severity of disasters, preparedness, rapid and effective response to disasters, and post-disaster recovery. And two, the establishment of national, provincial, and municipal disaster management centers. Also of importance in the Act is the National Disaster Management Framework, which is the legal instrument specified by the Act to address the needs for consistency across multiple interest groups by providing a coherent, transparent, and inclusive policy on disaster management appropriate for the Republic as a whole. Section 7. Chair, the National Disaster Management Framework comprises of 4 key performance areas and 3 supportive enablers required to achieve the objective as set out in the KPAs. For example, key performance area number 1 focuses on establishing the necessary institutional arrangement for implementing disaster risk within the national, provincial, and municipal spheres of government. KPA 2 addresses the need for disaster risk assessment and monitoring to set priorities, guide risk reduction action, and monitor the effectiveness of our efforts. Key performance area 3 introduces disaster risk management planning and implementation to inform developmentally oriented approaches, plans, programs, and projects that reduces disaster risks. Key performance area 4 presents implementing priorities concerned with disaster response and recovery and rehabilitation. As I indicated earlier on, that generally people are the ones affected by the disaster, and therefore they are supposed to play a meaningful role in both the formulation of the strategies and their actual implementation. Community participation is the important aspect of this framework, and for example, in the key performance area 1, it spells out very clear that the communities is at the coal face of disaster risk management. It is from the condition of risk that exists in communities that all other disaster risk management activities evolve. It is in the community where all the operational activities related to disaster risk management take place. All disaster risk reduction planning, the development of projects and programs, and the allocation of responsibilities must be founded on the needs and priorities of communities. Disaster risk reduction is a community-driven process. Municipalities must involve local communities in the development of disaster risk profiles, facilitate understanding of the concepts and values of disaster risk reduction in communities, prioritize projects aimed at risk reduction in their ITPs, and facilitate community participation in training, preparedness, planning, and awareness programs. The government has played a leading role in ensuring that indeed as people and as a country we respond effectively and efficiently in the overall management of disasters, but our experience of climate change, which also threatens to become a major reversal to human and economic progress, is what we are grappling with at the moment. This climate change is a complex phenomenon. For example, it makes natural disasters worse by increasing the frequency, magnitude, and intensity of typhoons and rainfall, which in turn leads to more landslides and flooding. It is reported that heat waves and rising sea levels are the other consequences of climate change that have general significant implication for sustainable human. Again, in this case, poor people are almost always the ones most affected by these misfortunes because they are the least equipped and lack the resources to resist, to cope with, and to recover from the devastating impacts. But again, as a country, we are responding very well to this misfortune by clearly outlining the fact that the causes and impacts of climate change cannot be addressed by a single country in isolation. This is a global problem requiring global solutions achieved through the concerted and cooperative efforts of all our countries. To meet its responsibility to the South African people to respond to the impacts of climate change and to contribute to the international effort to mitigate climate change, the government, in consultation with business, labor, and civil society, has drafted the
Honourable
National
Member,
Climate
your
Change.
speaking time has expired.
As the Deputy Minister has said, disaster management is everybody's business. I now thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. I now call upon the Honourable Makunyane.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, Honourable Members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As we speak, millions of people in Pakistan, China, and Indonesia are reeling from the effects of natural disasters that have worsened over the past decades as the effect of global warming and other ecological changes that have resulted from unbridled and rapacious exploitation of the natural resources.
I raise on a point of order, Chair, regarding the speaker's list. On the list is supposed to be Honourable Joseph, and it is Honourable Makunya.
Honourable members, seeing that Honourable Makonyana is already on the podium, can I call Honourable Joseph after him? Continue.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Global warming and environmental degradation have become a serious threat to human existence. But natural phenomena by themselves do not constitute disasters. They become disasters when they impact negatively on human beings and disrupt their life support systems. Disasters are therefore the result of interaction of human decisions and actions of nature. Natural disasters can therefore be avoided by appropriate prevention, preparedness, and response systems. Speaking on the occasion of the International Day for Natural Disaster Reduction on the 6th of October 1993, the ANC President, Comrade Nelson Mandela, set the tone for South Africa's disaster management ethos and principles when he observed that the people of our country have suffered terribly under natural disasters such as drought and flooding. The impact of these disasters could have been limited if the National Party government did not implement racist policies that led to marginal agricultural areas being overpopulated and overgrazed. During the last 3 years of South Africa, that is still a continuation of the quotation. During the last 3 years, South Africa has suffered a terrible drought from which we are beginning to emerge. The terrible hunger and malnutrition that millions of people suffered throughout this period could have been avoided if the National Party government followed a program of sustainable development. Instead, apartheid policies were enforced that created pockets of privilege in a sea of poverty and deprivation. Millions of people do not have access to the most basic services. It is the ANC's policy that humanitarian assistance must be provided to victims of disaster in accordance with the principles of humanity, neutrality, and impartiality. The story of disaster management in South Africa is incomplete without a reference to the effects of the racially segregated allocation of residential spaces, facilities, and services as a result of apartheid policies. Whether one is dealing with unavoidable natural hazards or those which can be prevented, the most negatively affected people are always those with little or no resources for post-disaster recovery, especially the poor. It is the poor who are repeatedly at the receiving end of disasters. This is because they often cannot exercise the option of buying themselves out of the marginal and vulnerable land which they invariably occupy. It is said that when disaster strikes, the rich may lose their property, which is usually insured, but the poor lose their lives and their livelihoods. The rich and affluent can activate recovery resources, which include insurance cover, with some exceptions, savings. The situation of the poor is exacerbated by the fact that they often have little influence on land use management and related economic decisions because of their lack of finesse and technical capacity to engage in forums which deliberate on these issues. The recent flood disaster in Cape Town, which affected 36,000 people, is a case in point. Of those who were affected, the people of Makassar and Kosovo in Philippi were the worst hit. 36,000 people who live in 225 households were affected in these areas. The disaster risk management of the DA-run city placed the responsibility for security of property on the affected people themselves. Listen to the DA management when it says the area where people are affected is agricultural land. In this area, the community erected structures within the flood line. What is this? A local authority fails in its responsibility to engage with, educate, and persuade the people on its land use management policy, and then resort to shifting the responsibility to the poor. The visionary ANC could foresee the above challenge. That is why it laid a solid foundation for policies of equity and redress when it said that removing the inequalities to which the majority of the people have been subjected, both by law and in practice, cannot be left either to paternalism or chance. We cannot have a nation if half of the people live in darkness and half in light. There are serious challenges on disaster management across the board. What is required is that we should be among the people who prepare them adequately for disasters. Disaster preparedness should entail planned and sustained education and training campaigns where people are made to understand the negative impact of exposure to disaster-prone areas. This should be coupled with principled implementation of land use management plans to enable planned resettlement where these are inevitable. In developing land use plans, the authorities should consult the people whilst invoking the wisdom of the ANC policy guideline on the allocation of land and for housing purposes. In this regard, the ANC expresses its rejection of the privatization of land for low-income housing and believes that it is the state's responsibility to ensure that low-income households have easy access to well-located, affordable land. The state or state organs which will play an active role in land acquisition and in curbing land speculation. Some of the measures we will consider using to curb land speculation are the application of high municipal rates on well-located, undeveloped land, a capital gain tax on land transaction, and the use of legal arrangements and tenure forms that take land and housing transactions out of the market and guard against downward raiding by more affluent groups. The allocation of land in urban and rural areas should not discriminate against people on the basis of race or gender, foster nepotism, or other forms of corruption, and should not involve lengthy time delays. This is a quotation from Ready to Govern. A key part of the education of people should focus on getting the communities, especially the poor, to reduce and eventually eliminate all practices which aggravate their conditions by promoting chances for more disasters. In dealing with this matter, serious attention has to be paid to the socio-economic causes of the negative practice which make communities more prone and vulnerable to disasters. Viable and innovative disaster management systems must address themselves to the recurrent challenge of slow response time to disasters. These are instances where families have been repeatedly struck by disaster, and after lengthy periods, you find that not much has happened to relieve them and assist their recovery. In many other instances, the responsible officials declare an area a disaster area, but then do not provide the requisite support as envisaged by disaster management legislation. Furthermore, a viable and innovative disaster management system has to be people-centered, people-driven, and gender-sensitive. Post-disaster rehabilitation needs to be swift and efficient. Through ongoing scenario planning, people who inhabit disaster-prone spaces have to be mobilized and prepared for the eventuality of recovery, if this is to be done swiftly. But what is critical is that those who plan effective management systems have to be among the people. They have to understand the hazards of living on the edge without a flushing toilet or electrical power. Consultants who conceptualize these systems in their fancy air-conditioned offices far from the people are doomed to fail at the critical time of need. They will soon realize the discord between their esoteric ideas and the real people whose lives and meager belongings they seek to protect. Going forward, South Africa should continue to explore innovations, including learning from our regional counterparts, particularly to deal with key challenges of changing climate patterns and the disasters that are brought about by these conditions. Addressing COP17, Minister Edna Molewa alluded to this critical strategy when she remarked that for the immediate future, sectors that need particular attention are water, agriculture and forestry, health, biodiversity, and human settlement. Resilience to climate variability and climate change-related extreme weather events will be the basis for South Africa's future approach to disaster management, and we will use region-wide approaches where appropriate. A viable and innovative disaster management system must integrate disaster preparedness, prevention,
Honourable
response,
Member,
and recovery.
your time is over.
Yeah, thank you. These must be tailored for specific conditions of disadvantaged and vulnerable groups in all areas. I thank you.
I'll now call upon Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Honourable.
And sorry for what happened.
Accepted. Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chairperson, Deputy Chairperson, Deputy Minister, and Honourable colleagues. I first of all want to congratulate the Deputy Minister in his new position. Honourable Chair, disaster knows no boundaries. It knows actually no governments. It knows no political parties. It knows no colour of skin. Disaster simply means the sudden disruption of life, of people, of communities in a district caused by nature or human occurrence, and sometimes causes death or serious injury or damage to property, the infrastructure and the environment, and affecting the economy. Honourable Chair, when disaster strikes, human beings show their humanity towards each other in rescue operations, Disaster Management Act, which laid down the foundation of a new integrated and coordinated disaster management policy, which is focused on the preventing or reducing the risk of disasters, preparedness for emergencies, effective response, and post-disaster recovery. Our experience of disasters in South Africa relates to earthquakes, droughts, various diseases affecting human beings and animals, extreme weather conditions like floods, disasters on the sea, oil leakages, fires, accidents, lightning, the mines, and construction. Honourable Deputy Chair, our Parliament have passed this Act, the National Policy Framework, which brought into life an intergovernmental management committee, an advisory forum, and a national centre to respond to any disaster anywhere in our country at any point in time. And this Parliament should indeed be proud that our country, in response to our domestic needs, is able to respond to any international needs when required to do so. Our Act further ensures that proper structures and systems are in place with the necessary competent staff, trained with the necessary equipment and communication systems between the spheres of government. Honourable Deputy Chair, it's very important that the component of the disaster management plan, which highlights the framework, focus on volunteers, which are always first on the scene when disaster strikes, followed by non-governmental organizations, technical experts, and the private sector. We must say thank you to all South Africans who over time have left their comfort zones to face possible death themselves, trying to save someone or animals. The DA commend all South Africans who volunteer to work in disaster teams. To ensure an innovative disaster response plan with effective management, each province must prepare a profile which includes the municipal and disaster management plans covering population and geographical areas with possible disasters based on research that the community may face. Collaboration between province and emergency centers for municipality is critical. The cooperation between police and the law enforcement agencies, traffic and fire, is very important. And some provinces, I've noted on the website, even have disaster plans available, which is good news. But it is also common knowledge that many South Africans do not prepare for the unforeseen when disaster strikes. And that leaves them in the predicament with movable property or immovable property, and sometimes life is at stake. There's flood lines, 100 years and 50 years or 100 years that may come, but when it comes, it is disastrous. And in Cape Town, particular communities have been asked several times every year, year after year, to move to alternative sites, but, Honourable Deputy Chair, we face with the same problem every year. And therefore, the infrastructure development is so important, because South Africans have expectations when disaster comes and they look to government. So it is therefore important that a funding model is also important to the municipalities for them to prepare for any disaster. Training is important, research is important, climate change is important to look at, and that all contributes to our plans, because 99% of South Africa's disaster is due to weather patterns, and 39% of that is related to flooding, and 22% to thunderstorms. 240 million has been invested, in particularly for OR Tambo Airport and for Cape Town, where they can see disasters coming far in advance, and where scientists can accurately look at that weather systems and give us the warning signs. In closing, Honourable Chair, it is important that in governmental forums, where the community plays an important part, be part of this environmental plan, so that we here today, as members who are discussing and debate, know that legislation is there, and that was our role and our mandate from our constituencies, to ensure that systems and structures are in place to help our fellow citizens to save lives and property and limiting the damage to the environment, and to assist our communities to return to a normal life as soon as possible after the disaster has struck. I thank you, Honourable Deputy Chair.
Honourable O. De Beer. O. Alia.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me also grab the opportunity to wish the Minister in his new post well, as a colleague which I was with for almost 4 years at the Magistrate Commission. Chairperson, years into our democratical independence, national government and the Western Cape government still continues to treat African Township with total disregard. COPE has observed that in the last years of democracy, into every rain session, we have seen increased evidence of negligence. It is not strange to find yourself in an informal area, a refugee, in a blink eye in this province of the Western Cape. Disaster is defined as a serious disruption of the functioning of the community and a society. They involve widespread human, material, economic, environmental impact which exceed the ability to affect community or society to cope using its own resource. COPE would like to see a much more aggressive and holistic approach to prevent and in the preparations. South Africa has been a disaster management case right from its birth. The people of South Africa has been affected physically and emotionally for years from the social, family, political, and environmental lives. COPE believes it will be short-sighted for any administration to look into the problem in silos. Beyond spatial development plans to rehabilitate social living areas from disaster belts, waterlogs, of the intention of these problems to divide our communities' daily living conditions. For how long have we seen such pictures year in and year out? Hazarded, and if it's raining disasters, it's all over in only areas like Khayelitsha, Philippi, where infrastructure is of its poorest and not been maintained for years in the Western Cape. Year after year, Chairperson, a disaster is it's either water in the winter, it's rain, and it's fire in the summer. Not so long ago, Cape Town has drawn a protest that saw the disaster management institution, including the police, frozen with fear. That is a disaster management crisis right there as we speak, Chairperson. For meeting the emergency caused by major incidents, planning response strategies are termed as disaster management plans. Your DMPs cannot be considered in isolation or act as a substitution for maintaining good safety and standards. The best way to protect against major incidents occurs in the maintenance of this infrastructure. The successful management of the internal displacement personnel, your IDPs, of so-called xenophobia disasters, as declared in the Gauteng and in the Western Cape province in 2008, brought a new dimension to corporate governance and how to deal with the humanity crisis.
Honourable Member, your time is over.
In conclusion, Chairperson, the issue of funding the infrastructure should be reviewed, especially in this crisis provinces. Thank you, Chairperson. Provinces, I think, Gauteng.
I'll now call upon Honourable Adams.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Deputy Minister Nell, honorable members, let me also join Chairperson in congratulating Deputy Minister Nell in the repositioning of his, or the reposition of his post in the Cocter family. We know, we're not going to wish him well or what, we know that he will do well as we know he has done well in everything he has done so far. Chairperson, today's debate takes place with only 4 months left before the 9th year anniversary of the catastrophic 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami that killed over 230,000 people in 14 countries. It also takes place with only a few days to go to the 14th year remembrance of what is commonly known as the Manenberg tornado, which left over 200 families homeless and 5 dead when a massive tornado hit Manenberg, Guguletu and Saria State on 28 August 1999, and the death of 1,404 people during Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans in the United States on 29 August 2005. It is therefore befitting that we dedicate this debate to remembering the hundreds of people that have lost their lives to natural disasters around the world, and those whose lives have been rendered unbearable and face the hardships of living under atrocious weather conditions on a daily basis. Honorable Chairperson, for many of us, the various disasters such as the tsunami, the Manenberg tornado, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, in the United States of America remain embedded in our minds because of their catastrophic effects, but for many of the affected families and communities, these events remain a turning point of their lives. The social and economic consequences of recent natural disasters across the world have reiterated the need to place more attention to natural disasters and reduce vulnerabilities to disaster risk. The United Nations have recently revealed that natural disasters pose a significant threat to prospects for achieving the Millennium Development Goals, in particular the overarching target of halving extreme poverty by 2015. Only in 2010 there were 373 natural events, such as earthquakes, floods, cyclones, volcanic eruptions, and droughts affected some 208 million people, causing 300,000 deaths and producing economic losses estimated as at 110 billion US dollars. The United Nations report, Reducing Disaster Risk, a challenge for developing 2004, shows that the billions of people in more than 100 countries are periodically exposed to at least one event of earthquake, tropical cyclone, flood, or drought. It also illustrated that annual economic losses associated with such disaster across the globe has risen to an average of 65.9 billion US dollars. The tragic reality of disasters is that the poor, especially those living in precarious conditions such as informal settlements, low-lying areas and with low-paying jobs, or unemployed and without any social security, are the most affected. Today, approximately 85% of the people exposed to earthquakes, tropical cyclones, floods and droughts live in countries have either medium or low human development. Honorable Deputy Chair, like many nations around the world, South Africa faces similar increasing levels of disaster risk. It is for this reason that the ANC government passed the Disaster Management Act, Act number 57 of 2002, on 15 January 2003, to ensure that South Africa has an integrated and coordinated disaster risk management policy that focuses on preventing and ensure effective responses to disasters and post-disaster recovery. Since 1994, the ANC has moved with utmost speed and decisiveness to redress our apartheid settlement patterns and many of the conditions that have exposed our people to disasters through the provisions of houses, water, electricity, streets, and other essential amenities. Despite all of these changes, many households and communities in South Africa are still exposed to catastrophic disasters. It is estimated that many parts of the country are experiencing some of the greatest rainfall in 20 years. Last year alone, the cost of damage to the infrastructure in the 7 of the country's 9 provinces affected by heavy rainfalls and floods was estimated at 160 billion or 14 billion pounds. It seems to me that the honourable veteran needs to meet the unveteran chairperson.
That's fine.
Many of our communities are exposed to a wide range of weather hazards, including drought, cyclones, and severe storms that continue to cause widespread hardships and devastation to communities across the country. In 2011, flooding in South Africa resulted in the death of more than 100 people, forced at least 8,400 from their homes, and prompted the government to declare 33 disaster areas. The majority of the deaths were recorded in the eastern province of KwaZulu-Natal. Last year in October, 8 people died when heavy rains and storms hit the Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga provinces. In the Western Cape, heavy rain, snow, and bitter cold winds continue to make the lives of many households unbearable. In addition to these natural disasters, many communities face exposure to human-induced disasters due to their settlement patterns and conditions. In many parts of the country, large numbers of people live in conditions of chronic disaster, vulnerability, where they face recurrent natural and other threats that range from drought to repeated and uncontrollable informal settlement fires. It is estimated that over 5,000 people are displaced each year due to wildfires in South Africa, especially in the poor and those living in informal settlements and rural areas. During a fire safety symposium that was held in Goodwood on the 28th of February 2013, the City of Cape Town's Disaster Risk Management Centre revealed that it responded to over 15,000 incidents of fire in the informal settlements between 1999 and last year. It also revealed that 860 people died due to fires between 2005 and this year, Chairperson. If this multitude of our people who today took upon us to speak for their plight and hardships, it is this multitude of our people who expect us today to make a clarion call to all structures of government to move with utmost speed to ensure that the sustained and concerted efforts of our government to reform the racially imbalanced apartheid disaster management systems also reach their communities. Honourable Chairperson, we cannot address the exposure of our people to disasters in the same mode and mentality of the apartheid regime. We need to move with greater speed to deliver proper houses, roads, and other essential amenities for our people to ensure that they are not made to live in some of the most atrocious conditions of flooding and cold as we have seen in the Western Cape. In fact, the people of the Western Cape, especially the black communities in the Cape Flats, are not exposed to disasters and related risks, but their lives have been systematically made a disaster by the Democratic Alliance, or as they say, the Daga Alliance in the Western Cape, party led in the Western Cape. Honourable Chairperson, we heard that the Honourable Joseph says disaster areas knows no colours or boundaries.
Just hold on. Just hold on. Just hold on.
Chairperson,
Honourable, I've recognized you, Honourable van Lingen.
Chairperson, may I ask the member a question? I just want to know what he's been smoking.
No. Continue.
Chairperson, I don't smoke, so the member is out of order. The provision of mobile fire extinguishers by the City of Cape Town was a total failure and a waste of public funds. We watched with great astonishment that 3 days after the Mayor of Cape Town, Patricia de Lille, handed these fire extinguishers, hundreds of shacks burned down in Joe Slovo. Chairperson, these fire extinguishers did not work, so our people's house and their livelihoods could not be saved. Honourable Chairperson, as the ANC, we have noted that firstly, the different spheres of government do not fully apply or adhere to current legislative, policy and institutional and funding mechanisms. Secondly, relief measures often take time to reach the victims or places affected by disasters because of the lengthy bureaucratic processes for disbursing disaster funds. Thirdly, experience has shown that funding for disaster does not always adequately address the effects of a particular hazardous event or the cost incurred by provinces or municipalities. The other challenge is that most municipalities do not understand the necessity of budget for disaster risk reduction. I thank you, Chair.
I'll now call upon our Honorable Member Nell.
Deputy Chairperson, thank you very much for adopting me as your member. No, I think just to start off by thanking all of the members who participated in this debate, and again thanking the NCOP for hosting this important debate that draws attention to a very, very important aspect of governance. An important aspect of governance which I think was appropriately debated in the Council, because one of the key tasks of the Council is to make a contribution to intergovernmental relations. And I think the need for sound and effective intergovernmental relations is nowhere as clear as it is in the area of disaster management. So we thank you for that. I think the Council has done itself proud by hosting this debate and coming together and sending out a clear message across party lines that disaster management is everyone's business, that we all have a duty to take hands and make sure that we have an effective and efficient disaster management system at all levels of government. Secondly, that system must be a people-centered disaster management system. A people-centered disaster management system because the victims of disasters are first and foremost the poorest of the poor and the most vulnerable in our societies. It also highlighted the fact that we need a comprehensive and an integrated approach to disaster management, because the link between the causes and the effects of disaster and underdevelopment in our societies is very, very clear. The fact that disaster management is also a key element within our national development plan and a key objective of a developmental state emerged very, very clearly during this debate. And I think lastly for me, what stands out amongst this debate, a message that we need to carry out to all spheres of government and our constituencies is that prevention is better than cure. That we need to plan for the prevention of disasters, but always be ready to respond when they do occur. So we thank the Council for hosting this debate. We pledge our support and we look forward to working with you, including when we come to this House with our Disaster Management Amendment Bill. I thank you very much.
Honourable members, that concludes the debate and the business of the day. Yes. You're a late comer. Honourable members, you're requested to remain standing until the procession has left the chamber. The House is adjourned.